Microsoft's approach to data and artificial intelligence. Let me actually, I have a few little videos to share as well as part of this.
Today, right now, you have more power at your fingertips than entire generations that came before you. Think about that. That's what technology really is. It's possibility, it's adaptability, it's capability. But in the end, it's only a tool. What's a hammer without a person who swings it? It's not about what technology can do, it's about what you can do with it. You're the voice, and it's the microphone. When you're the artist, it's the paintbrush. We are living in the future we always dreamed of. We have mixed reality that changes how we see the world, and AI empowering us to change the world we see. You have more power at your fingertips than entire generations that came before you. So here's the question. What will you do with it?
Microsoft approaches data and AI. So we see that our technology and our tools can help you to amplify this human intelligence. So within the areas of reasoning, if it's understanding or it's interacting. And there are various ways of how you can do it. You can, from our work, we can see our customers, so they have a lot of data, but they can actually have to learn what they have there, because at the moment it's all about what you have, but what can you do with this data? What kind of conclusions you can do with that data? And sometimes this data is not perfect, so there's still a lot of work to be done around it. Similarly, kind of an understanding layer, it's that meaning of data, but it's also that unstructured, that data around us, whether it's videos, whether it's voice, images, text, something what traditionally we've never been able to tap into, and you yourself can see being used more and more in various innovative ways. And then how you can actually use this technology to interact with people in a new ways, and a way which is more comfortable for us as humans, rather than, for instance, filling yet another form to do something. So when we can actually use voice interface to request something or to approach something.
And argumenting is a big part of what we want to point here, right? So there is a lot of discussion over the AI replacing the human being, or losing the job. Without actually going any depth on that, argumenting has already been proven clearly that machine and human together can be way more powerful than any of the single one. So the most famous example is Kasparov, which was the greatest probably chess player of all the time in '97, who was beaten by IBM computer. Since then, the computer was the master for a long time, until Kasparov created Centaurus, which is an interesting project. He brought in a human, which is really good to play chess, and a machine, very powerful, and he proved that together they're unbeatable. But that's not the point. Later on, he proved that a kind of a very not really professional player, with not even that great program, still cannot be beaten. And that's not just having two powerful things. So that's how we see it. We see that a lot of things can actually be augmented, not replaced. And a lot of customers work with that's the point, because their business is changing. The technology is changing a lot of things. So how we do banking, how we do retail, everything is changing, and everyone has to come with new ideas. And that's why a lot of the things you will see, and you probably have seen maybe from other vendors, it's democratizing the AI. So the cognitive, instead of necessarily have everyone single in person in the room to be a data scientist, maybe being able to call a neural network just with an API call. So we will have kind of a mix here of example on these.
So from how the research is done in these areas to actually build those capabilities from a technology point of view. So at Microsoft Research, so we have a massive part of our company which just deals with research, and there are a few major breakthroughs has been done in the last few years, and among few of those are neural networks and deep learning, some of you may have heard of, that has improved massively. So for instance, there, 2016, there's an academia type of Olympics competition in object recognition. And basically, over the last few years, in 2012 or so, those are proposed deep learning technologies that have been used for this competition. And essentially, we got to the point where we can say that object recognition is a solved problem, and you can see it within your, in applications you use. It's kind of we've done it. But 10 years ago, actually, it was a big challenge, technological challenge. We couldn't actually analyze images very well. It was really hard to do. Similarly, with it in the speech recognition, text to speech, speech to text, is again, it's getting to the point where we can say it's on a human parity level. Machine reading, machine understanding the text, being able to reason about it, being able to ask right questions, being able to provide answers based on the questions. Again, we are getting there, it's getting better and better, and you will see in the next few years the progress on that side. And similarly with machine translation. So I'm originally from Russia, as you can probably guess from the accent, I'm not from here. So for me, it's a very big part because my family doesn't speak English. They live in Russia. And my daughter, she lives here, she speaks English and Russian, but she's kind of that person who can translate in between, between two worlds. But for them being able to use tools like, Skype with the machine translation already baked in, they can actually speak in Russian, and the people who understand them, people who don't speak Russian will understand, on the other side. So it's a very big part of, how we can again empower and augment our capabilities and actually bring us on together.
This is all perceptual, right? So it's the realm of the neural network. Who between you guys has, background or knowledge of machine learning or what a neural network is? Okay, so we will explain a little bit because it's a big part of the artificial intelligence and is a part of especially in the research of something that increased massively recently for a couple of reasons that we'll see maybe later.
So apart from just the technology and what we can do, sometimes it's a question, if we can do, should we actually do it? And it's getting more and more prominent these days, and I'm sure you hear about it from the media and from various media that we need to make sure we are doing AI in a safe way, in an ethical way, all the concerns around privacy and security. Where is that boundary where, some social media can offer you some personalization, but that feels a little bit too creepy. It's kind of, where is that angle? How safe it is, how reliable. And fairness, again, making sure that particular minority groups are not affected or biased against. So it's a very big problem in the industry right now. So it's not only Microsoft considered it's a wider technology, wider problem in the industry, which is being discussed. The governments and big technology players are working together on kind of building the frameworks around how we should actually work in this space. Because again, technology will allow us to do a lot of things, but we have to, as a society, we have to find the boundaries where it's safe.
Yeah, so the FATE project, which is Fairness, Transparency, Accountability and Ethics, is something we founded, but also there is a website where you can see that it's called Partnership in AI. That's kind of a consortium. We are one of the founders. Everyone is in. You will see Google, Amazon, Facebook, IBM, every single company, Apple, because as to point it out, the quote of one of the person in charge on OpenAI, the only AI that is really worth to build is the one we build together. There is a reason for that, because it's not that easy not to be biased. Algorithm by default, they're not biased. We are, and we are coding the algorithm. So as a human being, and that's where the problem lay. And then you can think this is not a big deal, but when the process is gonna decide if you can get a grant for the university, if you can get a loan to buy a house, and it won't be any more necessarily controlled by human, You see my point, right? It's kind of important that it's not biased and it's not gonna look at things that are not relevant to make you have the life that you can deserve like any other person. That's why minority have to be represented. That's why algorithm need not to be biased. But it's very difficult. So the only way you can do that is integrating every angle. The research side, the university, the company have to be transparent with one another. So that's why the consortium. The idea is everyone could actually achieve that if we are clear on what we're doing, because we can actually change the problem along the way. Well, one of the examples is even the government is looking at that. So there is this big law that entered in Europe for security, the GDPR, that has a number of things. But Article 22 talks exactly about how machine profile decision over human. And at the moment, one of the key points that is, well, it will always be a human being to have the last call on a decision, which is interesting because you need the explainable AI. And not everything at the moment, for example, the neural network, are easy to explain. They're very effective to get to the results. We might not know how they get to the results. So that's the key point around transparency.
So another kind of topic of ethical AI and how we work with our customers and partners, what we do together. So there's different ways of how we use our technology to actually help government or government organizations. So we do run different hacks and different events. So one of them with ordnance surveys is identify the data on the aerial images and just identifying the types of roofs. It's helping a Great Ormond Street Hospital again to use some of the technology we have in the healthcare scenarios. One of the very interesting examples of some of our colleagues did, it was actually working in Ghana, and there's a massive problem there around illegal mines, and so actually they could identify from the aerial images, they could actually identify those small-scale mines using those neural network technologies. Another big area is generally questions of sustainability, climate change, things we do for Earth, and how we actually destroy it, and how we can actually learn from images, from what's changing in the last 20, 50 years, from the images, from other sources of information, and how we can improve that. And that would lead to some of the scenarios around agriculture, how we can help that to be done sustainably, for instance. Obviously, accessibility and helping other groups of people who might struggle because of the various disabilities. So again, there's one of the stories where we could help with technology for some of the students to help universities. And it's actually leading to one of the examples. I don't know if you've seen it. So we one of our this person on the picture there. So he's actually a developer in the UK. And he had this idea, and it was, I believe it was part of the hackathon, kind of internal hack. He had a proposal of putting together an application, which is called the CMEI. You can actually download it right now from the Apple Store and Android as well. So it kind of bundles up together a few cognitive capabilities, and so there's a little video that you're going to show, so where he talks about it.
I'm Saqib Sheikh. I lost my sight when I was 7, and shortly after that I went to a school for the blind, and that's where I was introduced to talking computers, and that really opened up a whole new world of opportunities. I joined Microsoft 10 years ago as a software engineer. I love making things which improve people's lives, and one of the things I've always dreamt of since I was at university was this idea of something that could tell you at any moment what's going on around you.
I think it's a man jumping in the air doing a trick on a skateboard.
I teamed up with like-minded engineers to make an app which lets you know who and what is around you. It's based on top of the Microsoft Intelligence APIs, which makes it so much easier to make this kind of thing. The app runs on smartphones, but also on the Pivot Head smart glasses. When you're talking to a bigger group, sometimes you can talk and there's no response, and you think, is everyone listening really well, or are they half asleep? And you never know.
I see two faces, 40-year-old man with a beard looking surprised, 20-year-old woman looking happy.
The app can describe the general age and gender of the people around me and what their emotions are, which is incredible. One of the things that's most useful about the app is the ability to read out text.
Hello, good afternoon. Here's your menu.
Great, thank you. I can use the app on my phone to take a picture of the menu, and it's going to guide me on how to take that correct photo.
Move camera to the bottom right and away from the document.
And then it'll recognize the text. Read me the headings.
I see appetizers, salads, paninis, pizzas, pastas.
Years ago, this was science fiction. I never thought it would be something that you could actually do, but artificial intelligence is improving at an ever faster rate, and I'm really excited to see where we can take this. As engineers, we're always standing on the shoulders of giants, building on top of what went before, and in this case, we've taken years of research from Microsoft Research to pull this off.
I think it's a young girl throwing an orange frisbee in the park.
For me, it's about taking that far-off dream and building it one step at a time. I think this is just the beginning.
So there would be a few resources where you can actually see how that can be used, and we'll share the slide there so we can look at stuff. So if we talk about, how do actually you can bring some of the services and start using that on Azure, I think we can start with the fact that, data give us new ways of knowing and new things to know. You might have a lot of data, but how you actually start understanding what's in there. And also, from what examples you've seen, I guess it's, we can improve the existing software and make it more smarter through the use of those AI capabilities. And this is how machine knows, this is what you see by, wider society as what machine. But it's again, you are at the heart of it. You as engineers, you as designers, can understand what's happening. And the way generally we see this is happening, and this is similarly we observe it with our own customers, is usually you start with data and you start processing that data to get some information. And then once you get to that point of distilling the information, you can start learning and you get to some knowledge about the fact, about the data and what it brings to. And this can then lead to a particular action. And this is, you can think of various examples, and if it's, in the retail space, should we advertise to this person or that person, because we know a little bit more based on our data, we know what it is, so it can lead to specific actions. And then it will get, again, to some more data to be collected, and then the cycle goes together. So this is very high-level data science journey. It's always iterative. You never actually stop at one point. All those machine learning models, they keep on learning because more data is coming through, because some of those initial assumptions being challenged, and so on. If we talk about data science, and you may have heard it's kind of some unicorn skill required for the, to do that. And it's actually a lot of things, but they are all come together from engineering side of things, from math and statistics knowledge, and a bit more around business people and ethics, as we already spoke to. And it's kind of all together, they will give that sweet spot of what can be done with data science, because then you understand why, how, and how it can be done as well. And there's a lot of things around it, and I'm sure you'll see it more and more, especially later on in your life professionally, you'll see that all of those things on the side are equally important too. When we talk about, there's a lot of things here. here, so let's talk about the Azure side of things and machine learning, what you can do. So there are, the way we see, and it's back to the point of depending on your skill level, depending on your interest. You might be a developer who actually want to do very custom. You actually, you hardcore data scientist, all about the neural network, how to build it. Then you have an area where you can skill and services with which you can use. You might be a designer, or you might be a front-end developer who might want to bring some of those cognitive elements into your application, but you actually don't want to go too deep into the into custom development. Then you have services for that. So, and there are things in between as well. So, if you look from the top, so generally the way we see where people quite often start is Microsoft provides pre-trained models, and this would be, and we'll see some demos later on, this could be understanding the images, analyzing the images. It might be speech to text, text to speech, the translation services, and so on. And those quite often you can just use by calling an API from your application. So basically the models are done by Microsoft, they are maintained by Microsoft. All you're doing is you actually just requesting an API, so you're providing an image, and all you're getting is just a response to what is it on the image. And we'll see that later on. Then you can actually, if you want to do a bit more of a custom development, and you might be using various frameworks, and there are lots of them in the industry right now. Some of them provided by Google, some of them from Facebook. We have our own. So there are quite a few different ones. Here we see TensorFlow, Keras, PyTorch, Onyx, which is kind of again an approach to join it all together, join the vendors all together, because otherwise it's just too disconnected. There are different frameworks, and it's going to be evolving for the next few years because it's a very early stage, I guess, in the industry as well. You have the tools to actually use those.
And those are neural network framework, right? So while the first layer are cognitive services, as I said, we're not the only one. You see Google has it, Amazon has it. The idea is I want to make a visual application that I take a picture of something and recognize. You've seen the video before. Not necessarily recognize a cat from a dog, but actually describing. So I'm taking the picture of an apple and say this is an apple, this is the color. That's normally down to a neural network, actually a convolutional neural network in the specific. But if I have a service that is already trained to do that, I might actually be able to use that service. In my application, all I have to do is call an address, an API, and that will do the work on the back of recognition. We have example, we'll show you will be able to do it. You go to a website, you load a picture, and you get back a description of the picture, right? So that doesn't involve much of data science from the back, you just call it the service. And that's what we call kind of democratizing, make it easier. The second layer is when you want to do that type of recognition custom on your own. So now you're coding the neural network, and frameworks are very popular. PyTorch was developed by Facebook, TensorFlow by Google. Keras is more an interface. Now, without going into the detail, there are level of flexibility and how easy the neural network is to be coded versus how powerful. MXNet is very powerful, but it's not very easy to use, and it has very specific things. Torch at the beginning wasn't actually that easy until someone created a framework. So it's more like a flexibility, but also custom. It means you can ask a way more specific question to your neural network, which means you can train with your own data. And now you will be able to recognize the image I described before better and have more input out of that. And you can imagine every different area can have a different need of that type of things. And then there are other services which are more like down to the entire end-to-end. So the possibility to bring and ingest the data, manipulate the data, create a model or model using machine learning on neural network, and then do something at the end with this. So create your own API. We will see some of the stuff. And the last layer is the hardware acceleration, which is one of the biggest areas in the moment. Everyone is interested to do real-time AI. There are many companies who are really interested on that, specifically Intel with their own chip, and Google with their own one. We have our own approach, although in our data center the majority we use either Intel or NVIDIA. And then come back to the point that someone demonstrated basically with hardware acceleration we were able to jump 20 years ahead in terms of speed, and it doesn't require exactly the same logic of coding at a high level.
Right now, artificial intelligence helps us meet the needs of today so we're prepared for tomorrow.
By 2050, we need to produce 60% more food. So how are we going to feed the world without wrecking the planet? Using Microsoft artificial intelligence, we can reduce waste and produce more food. Any grower will tell you every row, every crop is different. We can use Microsoft AI to make local predictions about light, wind, rain. This helps farmers know when to plant, irrigate and harvest. It's making a difference.
Artificial intelligence helps farmers grow more while wasting less.
Now let's switch to the practical aspect so you can see something, how it works. Because otherwise we just so some of the stuff, as I said, you can go to the website and test it. Then we have like a proof where you can upload an image. We have a few applications that is going to tell you male, female, age. If you put your picture, there are other things that describe the picture. So you upload actually a picture of a building. It's going to say this is a white building with 3 windows. So that's interesting, and then we'll see how you can use that. And then we'll show you one tool, which is ML Studio, which actually it's an easy approach to all of these to create your model and publish your API, but with a graphical interface without actually having to code necessarily everything.
Sorry, one second. I'll just
Okay.
mirror my screen, otherwise I can't see what I'm doing.
That's fine. Oh, because
Yeah, it's extending now. So I can actually. So, few examples, and again, so we're talking. If you now keep in mind, we're talking about the service calling in API. So the example here is one of those cognitive services, and you will again use the link is extracting information from your text. So say I have a little piece of text, and I'm trying to understand what is it positive, is it negative, is it neutral, what are the kind of key phrases here, so machine can understand what's going on. So I put a little example, I had a wonderful trip to Edinburgh recently, and I love visiting the Royal Mile. So you can see it analyzed my text and say, well, language first of all is English, right? 100% confident. Key phrases, I pick up Edinburgh, Royal Mile because it's a landmark, wonderful trip, so I pick it up nicely. And then say, well, it's 96% positive, so it's green and all of that, right? However, if I say, given it's Edinburgh and it's actually windy and rainy, but it rained all the time. And then I can say, well, an example of sentiment. So it kind of, his sentiment is already decreasing. It's like, oh, okay, so maybe she wasn't happy. Let me just put like kind of, it still feels positive enough. But if I say, well, unfortunately, and I think it's probably, I'm not particularly happy about that, we can see the sentiment actually drops off quite significantly, right? So you can see, so this is just an example for you to try, and then there are a few examples here you can see. It's in different languages as well, and how to use.
And these cognitive services have, if you go and try yourself, otherwise, aside of doing this test, you can actually use, there is a free version, so you can enroll for a free version, and you get an API and a key. And that's all you need in your app. You make the call to that API with that key, and once the app will ask for the neural network to do the job on the back, the neural network will do and send back the results.
Yeah, so what we'll do here, we'll show a few examples of what you can do, and then we'll show you an example of how you could call those APIs from Notebook or from your own service.
Sorry, my team is doing something exactly like this.
Yeah.
So could I give you something to write down and see how accurate it is?
Sure.
See?
Can you write breaking news, convict escaped, and 3 are killed? And 3 people are killed and 6 injured.
Wow. Nothing is cheerful.
That's not gonna be messy.
Do it yourself.
Simulations.
Yeah, but couldn't you just get your laptop and do it yourself? Well done.
Alright, thank you.
Yeah, good.
How are you doing this? So what are you doing? Are you using like a type of
We're
cognitive?
using it to like analyze it. We're probably going to use it to analyze the text from news websites. We're making a fake news thing.
All right, interesting.
Okay. That's cool. All right, so another service which is quite interesting is we call it language understanding, and it's, you know, understanding of what people say, and they can say it in a different way in a natural language. You know, you would say, somebody escaped. I can say somebody, run out of the jail, whatever it might be, right? Just to that example. But actually,
Exactly.
it's leading to the same idea of, somebody gone from the jail. So,
Inferring understanding,
Yeah.
right? Which is exactly what you described, which goes beyond just the sentiment or grouping the bad word or the good word, because that's how it used to be done at the beginning. It's easy to say, I'll collect all the good word and all the bad word, and then I sum it up and I balance. That doesn't work. My first experiment in England was, in English, you have please in any sentence. So if you do that approach, it's always neutral, right? So either you mark please as a neutral word, but the understanding is actually very good, example of what you said. What do I want to extract out of that, and how real is the news? So you're inferring now something that goes beyond just the good and the bad.
Yeah, and the example here, and again, this is something you can play with yourself. So there's a little demo of a remote light control. So what we have a little, setup here. We have a lamp, table, and another lamp next to it, table lamp, floor lamp, and then we can either choose, available options, or we can actually type a command to control it. So let's just, for an example, so we can actually say, can you please switch on the floor lamp to green? And you can see it here. And if it now visualizes, so what we did, we clicked the button, so it went to the service, which is called LUIS, Language Understanding Service, and it actually came with a response, which you can see on the right-hand side, and it said, well, the query was switch floor lamp to green. I believe that the most, important in that sentence was actually turn on, and there's an intent, and we can actually build that model. And I'm fairly confident this is what the user asked me to do, switch on the light. And then it provides some additional attributes, so actually switch on the light where, because we have different lamps in this case. So we have an entity floor, because that's what is mentioned, and we have a entity green, saying green color, right? So that's maybe, or we can say, okay, well, turn on the left light, and you will see similarly, the light switched on here, switched on, and then the entity came back, and I hope you can all see it, so it's a left one. And similarly, we can say, okay, well, all the lights off, and that's what just represented here in the application, and then, this is what came back. And similarly, we can actually say, switch on all the lights. And this is, me typing it, so it will actually come back. It will understand that the intent of that sentence was turn all on, and then it will do that. So if you want, we can, I think, I haven't tried that color, change the color. So, I picked up the red, so it just didn't. So now we got the API response, but actually the application here on the website didn't actually pick up what to do with the red. But as you can see, the response was there, whether you act on it or not, and that's your action of your application. That's a different story. So this is language understanding. Again, please take a look and ask questions later if you want. Image search. Obviously, you're familiar with Bing, so the various capabilities of search capabilities. So this particular cognitive service allows you to do search images, and based on a specific, you can actually tailor it down to what exactly you want to watch or you want to find. And you have an option of, selecting, providing an image type, what exactly you want to find. Say you want to find a clip out of a robot. And so there are a few other, so let run for a second. And so there are a few other filters you can say, well, it's for the market in the UK, it's safe search or not, what color we want to use, what license and site, etc. And yeah, let's refresh it, maybe fine. Yeah. So you can see it gave us a few examples here. You can, and again, it's an API call. At the back of it, it's an API call with specific image type, and you can see we can do GIFs now, animated GIFs, so that will be coming up slowly, and just my 4G. Good enough.
But I suppose, it's clear the point.
Yeah,
right?
so
It's
you
the
can
same
see
story.
it's coming up now, so you have better web connection. Right, anyhow, let's move on. Just of time. Images, we spoke understand from the images, and there are different things we could do. So first of all, the simple I say, 5 years ago we couldn't do that, but the solved problem of analyzing an image, you can actually use an API, provide an image URL, or there's a way of actually uploading your own image and get information out of it, various types of information. And in this particular case, so you can see, let's see, this for
And you can do, you go to the website, you have to browse and submit, you put your own picture, you'll see that the API works also with your pictures. It doesn't have to be the one that they're
yeah,
there,
so
right?
these are just pre-canned, but you can use your own, submit your own URL and just do submit. I won't test my Wi-Fi now for that, but so the kind of things you can get from the image is, you see, there's a description, or there is a sort of the category of descriptions, so the tags and the things which were analyzed from that image, so the skating, person, man, outdoor, all of that stuff. There's a caption, which is a very cool thing. It's actually generated by the model, what it thinks, so it's kind of trying to describe this picture. So a young man riding a skateboard with a fairly high confidence of 0.8, and the confidence levels goes from 0 to 100 obviously, so that's kind of that the range is. And then also it can provide you more information about, I think it's skating, picture of somebody skating, 0.99. It's, there's various things there. It's a male, actually. Because it can't see the face, it kind of assumes on various other features, but it's kind of lowish confidence that it's a male there. And again, you kind of see the difference how humans are perceived image and what machine can actually derive, right? Because we look at this, we kind of get the same tag, but we have a much higher confidence about others. That image format, it's more of technical stuff, image format, dimension, whether it's clip art and it's not, black and white, is it adult content, is it, some other categories. So it kind of picks up a lot of things as well as colors, which might be important to your application as well. If you, for instance, try to find all the pictures with a gray background, or accept only those with a gray background. So this kind of things you could do. Second way of how you could use this API is actually use optical character recognition, and this is where you can pick up handwritten or just typed, scanned documents and get the information out of them. And again, so this is example of so you see, so the image here, it actually picks it up correctly, so this is the things that pick it up. And then as a JSON response from that API, there's quite a lot of information actually. There's a bounding box, so essentially what you can do in some of the application, you can actually say, well, this is the part where the lead is, this is the part where snow is, and so on. You can actually do those boxes.
Yeah, the object detection inside the object recognition, right, which is the characteristic of it being able to identify the object beyond the scene. It's typically used, one of the most famous algorithms, which is the YOLO, you only look once, and it's very used heavily on driverless car. Because obviously you can imagine that the car has to be able to identify each object and recognize it so that it can act accordingly. So it's just not the entire picture, it's each single area you can square.
Area, yeah. And similarly, you can actually do, there's a service which is in preview, so handwritten text from images. And again, you can see the examples here. So this is just a flip chart, and written actually in a very different, different ways. There's some pictures there, but it actually picked up the right words and recognized it. It's still in preview, so if you're going to test it, you might see various results. So kind of, we're still working on it. It's still a problem to be solved. To be sure and confident about this. So this is the image processing part. Another area of where those cognitive services are quite interesting to use. And again, we as humans, we recognize emotions very easily. We can see the degrees of where the person is happy, scared or whatever. But again, for the machines to understand that is quite hard. And so one of those services here is similar. You can actually go and test it yourself. So you have, for instance, a number of people on the picture, and then you can see what they facial expressions are. So for instance, and the levels of confidence. So for instance, in this case, we have this girl is happy 0.9, fairly high. This lady is 100% happy, smile face. And then you might have, for instance, this lady who is clearly not happy. And you can see from the JSON response from the API, all the scores are coming up, and then here you can say, well, she's actually probably disgusted, or sad and disgusted and all that kind of stuff.
Wait.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Does 100% happy mean like totally manic, or does it mean 100% confident?
So that's 100% confidence.
Confident.
Among those 9 classes of emotions, yeah.
So I can't be like, so if I'm very happy and just regular happy, 100% doesn't. Oh.
Well, but it's an interesting point. One of the challenges with the machine learning is always how would you fit between a variance and a bias. So as a human being, we're very good on generalizing. You saw a cat, you know that it's a cat, you recognize any type of other cat. For a machine, that's not necessarily true. As soon as the cat has a specific color, it is close to a floor that has a similar color, is very different. So sometimes if your model, it's very, very good, so it fits 100% your prediction, you overfitting, which means you're likely not to be great on generalizing after that. And so all the other things that comes in might be that you see an happy and you keep saying that he's happy even if he's actually maniac. So it's always something that the machine has to deal with, which we are used to as a human. Does that make sense?
Right. So there are lots of other services I could have shown you, but because you can go there are I think about 30 something now or something.
Yeah. So maybe it's worth to show how you can get
so
the key, right? So how you can go there and enroll with an email on a free service and get back something you can actually use, and you can start calling the API from your application. Obviously, the free one it's limited.
Yeah.
But still usable.
So basically, if you go into this computer vision or any of the cognitive services, actually, say try computer vision as an example. So there are options of getting a trial, getting free version of Azure account, so which will give you a little bit more beyond the cognitive services. You can actually start using others, the ones we're going to demo, some of them, and then you might have it already. So again, you can chat with Elena. I don't know what's the setup here, so you might be able to use just the guest one for the purpose of your demos, or you might have access to the free ones where you just need to have a credit card behind it. So that's how you would use it. And what you will have when you have access to the portal, and I'll show you an example of one of the cognitive services which we will use in a moment ourselves. So this is the logs in. So we call it Azure portal. It's basically a front door to lots of services you could use on the cloud. So cognitive services is just one very tiny part of 500 plus services available. So let's just kind of look at that. But essentially, once you have access to portal, you can have a lot of other things you can do. And so example API, which I'm going to be using actually in a moment, because it's a REST API service, so what essentially you need to have is you need to have a URL, host URL, which I'll show you how you can get it, and also you just need to have a key. And once you have that key, you can just use that service straight away. And the example of that Vision API, this is what I'm going to just demonstrate to you how we can actually start doing that directly. Is we're going to use Python for that. I don't. How many of you are familiar with Python?
Notebook. How many of you use the notebooks?
Python notebooks.
All right.
So, yeah.
So that's an interesting service. That's a notebook services on Azure. That means you can go access the notebook, start writing the code, and using it without having to do any configuration on
Yeah.
your machine.
So, but I mean, for those of you who are not familiar with Python, it's going to be fairly simple to run if you want. So what we're going to do here, let me just